and boom goes the dynamite.
Hello. Happy midweek hump day Wednesday, day after Valentine's Day, whatever this day means for you. Welcome into another edition of Daily Dive. I'm your host, Renee Washington, joined by producer Mike. We have some top stories to bring your way. We also have some great guests coming on today. Jake Elliott will be joining us, the Vancouver Warriors play-by-play, as well as Brandon Joseph from the Swarm, who is an analyst with Georgia. So lots to talk about today as we've been carving up and breaking down all that's been happening across the league and taking a deeper look into the numbers and the stats, and not only just player stats, but also team stats. So with that, let's get into our top story presented by the Daily Dive Store. You can check out the Daily Dive Store in the link across our social media bios. You can also scan the QR code that is on your screen. Nice and easy. Just pull out that phone, give it a scan, and you can be able to see all the merchandise that we are selling at the Daily Dive Store. All right. Top story today that we want to talk about, average attendance based on percentage. So listen, to all my fellow mathematicians and math nerds like myself, we love to be able to break down numbers. And we know the total is one thing, but the average is another thing. And when you look at the percentage of seats filled compared to the overall capacity, it is kind of interesting to see these numbers. So producer Mike's always crunching some numbers behind the scenes, finding some deeper statistics and analytics beyond just results and goals and assists and saves. And so looking at this top number, Buffalo Bandits are the highest with their overall attendance at 13,700, but their percentage is just under 72%. So what makes this interesting is when you look at teams like Calgary, Colorado, Saskatchewan, they're only filling about half of their arena. And then some teams like Halifax, Georgia, who are all filling more than 78% capacity of their arena. So although their attendance numbers may vary, the percentage of total capacity compared to the number of butts and seats is actually the highest with the Georgia Swarm, the Halifax Thunderbirds, and the Buffalo Bandits.
Yeah, the things make you go, right? So there are 6 teams that are filling more than half of their stadium, as you mentioned, Saskatchewan, Buffalo, and Halifax, and Georgia, Colorado, and Calgary. Of those 6 teams, which one do you think is the outlier there? Because not only does one of them have a losing record, one of them has no wins at all. It's the same team with the losing record. There is no – listen, I really, really do not like to troll. I know I do it a lot. There is no way that they are filling 76% every single game. That is impossible. That is literally impossible. I speak for Georgians. They probably do not even know who the Swarm are.
You guys
There's
really call
no
yourself
way.
Georgians, by the way?
Huh?
Do you guys really call yourself Georgians? That's not real.
We do not. I don't know what they do in Atlanta, but it's definitely not Swarm fans. That's for one. I'm sorry. That's brutal.
Well, it is brutal. Look, we're going to have on the show later today, and this is probably a great time to be able to talk about this, as we're going to have the Swarm's analyst on, Brandon Joseph, later this show. But, you know, you keep digging up the numbers, Mike, and you keep trying to find the loophole, but the numbers are showing what the numbers are showing. Women lie, men lie, numbers don't lie. There's a whole song about it. Numbers don't lie. And it's showing that the Georgia Swarm have about 8,000 fans in attendance. And that's over 75% of their arena has been full for each game. Now, they may not be putting wins up on the standings, but they're getting butts in seats. And that's more than some teams like Albany and Panther City, who are less than 25% capacity. So in a full arena of X amount of seats, and based on the numbers, that means they probably have about 12,000. I'd say 15,000 is probably their max capacity based on their numbers, just doing some quick math in my head. They're filling up less than 25 or around 25% for their games.
Panther City is the one that's still concerning to me, because it's like they're Jonathan Donville just won Rookie of the Week again, and they just don't care. No one cares over there, and I wish they did, because Panther City is a very looks like to be a pretty tough team. And also, I think Desert Dogs about 47% is pretty cool too.
Absolutely. Well, Mike, I'm going to let you continue sharing the news around our player of the week and our rookie of the week before we jump into our next segment, presented by presented by Fanatics with Jake Elliott. So I'm going to let you dive in because I've got to jump really quickly. I'll be right back, guys. And producer Mike, you've got the show.
I do. So basically, Zach Currier won NLL Player of the Week for the Calgary Roughnecks, of course, playing in 2 games. I thought it was even better that Christian Del Bianco saved a bunch of shots, allowing less than 10 in each of those 2 games. But I guess they don't give out that award to goalies, I've noticed. Jonathan Donville, as I mentioned, is really good. Rookie of the Week once again. And of course, we have to mention a stat that I found. There have been 7 goalies this season in the NLL that have an 80% save percentage, and only one of them has a losing record. It's the Philadelphia Wings. So I want to say that there's been a lot of good goalies that some have a case for MVP. Christian Del Bianco, as I mentioned, is one of them. But get the Wings some help offensively because their goalie is doing the job. When we come back to Daily Dive, it is time for Jake Elliott to break down all the new stuff happening with the Warriors since we last talked to him. And if there's any moral victories with all that's been going on, he doesn't like them. We'll have to see what he says next. It's the Daily Dive. We'll be right back.
Welcome back to Daily Dive. I'm your host, Renee Washington. We've been talking about the weekly honors from this past week, as well as attendance, which continues to be something we dive into. Well, now we've got to dive into a team that's still seeking that next win. And joining us as our big guest presented by Fanatics, Jake Elliott, Vancouver Warriors play-by-play broadcaster, and so many different contributions you make to the NLL. Jake, welcome back to the show. Nice to have you here again.
Thanks, Renee. Good to be back. I don't know if that was like a shot at me or what there. Big guest, Jumbo. What?
No.
Just kidding. I'm just kidding. Good to be back with you, Renee. How are things?
Things could be better. First of all, the segment itself it's our big guest by Fanatics is the name of it. And secondly, I could be better if my Eagles did not lose Sunday. So I'm still bitter. It is Wednesday. I'm getting better every day, guys. I'm recovering. But I'm doing okay.
Okay. Yeah. I forgot
Jake,
you were in Philly. That was a tough one for you.
Yeah. I'm it's getting easier for me to even say the words, so I can at least talk about it now. But speaking of losing, let's talk about the Warriors.
Yeah. Nice segue.
They dropped another close loss to Panther City this past weekend. Closer games, not the results they want, but it's been competitive. What are your thoughts on how they've been playing as of late?
Yeah, it's a much better effort down there in Panther City for sure, and some encouraging, especially without Mitch Jones and Logan Schuss in their lineup. I thought the offense showed up. Keegan Ball and Riley Lowen really looks like he's elevated his game. Charlotte Beatty's took another positive signs there, but for me, the biggest one was Aiden Walsh in goal. And 14 goals there. Game rate, they moved allowed 13. It was a real back and forth affair. And at the end of your net, I think the biggest thing you can ask out of him is to give you a chance to win. And the more shots he faces, the more minutes he plays, the more games he plays, the more I said it on the pod a while back. There's going to be some growing pains here in goal with Vancouver, but the pain that they will experience this year will lead them down a path next year and in years to come. So all this experience that Aiden Walsh is getting well moving forward, and I really feel like he is getting better and more comfortable as each game goes along. Continue to play like that, the wins will start to come.
Absolutely. Definitely some things that you can still work on, especially defensively. You got to minimize how many goals you're giving up. But then also closer games. Is it a loss is a loss no matter how you slice it? But losing by 1 versus losing by 10, is that a moral victory? Is that a sign for some light at the end of the tunnel and some progress, in your opinion, that how the team is at least having closer losses in these last outings?
Yeah, I mean, maybe internally you can kind of sell that to yourself. I know Troy Gordon, moral victories are not going to sit well with him. Like you're and that guy doesn't like losing. So whether he loses by a goal or 10 goals, I don't know if it's a loss. I think to Troy and for most of those players as well. But I think if you sit back, it's better than it was, and it still needs to get better than it is. So I got moral victory. I don't believe in those in professional sports, quite frankly.
Yeah, I completely agree. You win or you lose. I do think there's always something to be learned from every result. But
Sure.
After a while, those losses have to turn into wins. Now, talking about Joel McCready and just the future of the Warriors, how well does this work for the Warriors with him coming in?
Well, I think it can't hurt, certainly, Renee, right? 6-7 years here as a player. He's a former multi-champion in this league as a player. Is a really well-liked and respected guy in the locker room as a player for lacrosse and in this community and in this province. And kind of talking to Joel a little bit, talking to people around the circles, is that Joel has a pretty tight relationship and wanted to have whatever kind of he can. And I think he's still kind of learning on the fly right now, but he's got some ideas of ownership and got the vibe of that room as well. Like he's not too far in that room the past couple of years. So what Joel brings to the table is kind of yet to be seen, but I think he's going to have an impact on this franchise. It's going to be a positive one, not only on the roster, but throughout the lacrosse community here in British Columbia. So I like the hire a lot. Everybody kind of does. And I think he's going to do some good things here in Vancouver.
Yeah. Definitely exciting to be able to have somebody step in as Joel becomes the new senior director of lacrosse operations, and having that experience as someone that just retired a couple of years ago, very closely, in terms of a turntable of the connection to the front office and the connection to the players. He can bridge that gap, which is what you always want in anybody that's on your staff, and especially as they're looking to improve the program and have better results and just be better as a team to start to have some other perspectives in the locker room. Now, looking ahead at this upcoming weekend as they face Calgary on Friday, Calgary coming off of a big weekend, winning both of their games over the Mammoth and the Rush, definitely playing very good lacrosse at this point of the season. And the Warriors, it's a tough one. Now, what do you think you would expect the Warriors need to do to be able to get win number 2 this weekend?
You know what? I kind of got a weird feeling about this game. I think when it comes to Calgary, regardless of the year, regardless of the records. It's like we've seen years go by, has had a winning record at, early in the season, and Calgary was winless, and the opposite happened. So I really feel like anytime that Calgary and Vancouver play, you really don't. Honestly, it wouldn't shock me to see Vancouver win this game, as crazy as that may sound. Clearly, it could happen, but Calgary has been playing, like you mentioned, some really good lacrosse over the last, especially last weekend, coming off of 2 straight wins, both on their home floor against 2 pretty good opponents. It's going to be a tall task here for Vancouver. Like, what do they need to do to win? I will outscore the other team and get some solid goaltending from Aiden Walsh. And I think probably the biggest thing lies on your opportunities, whether it be in transition or on special teams, and down on your discipline. Give yourself a chance in the lacrosse game by playing lacrosse, stay out of the penalty box, and play as much 5-on-5 as you can. And then at the end of the day,
I like it. Play discipline, minimize penalties, and take advantage of opportunities, especially with how well Christian Del Bianco's been playing between the pipes. But as you mentioned, I like that piece that regardless what either team does coming in, for Calgary and Vancouver, whenever they step on the field together, it's anybody's game. So we will see Friday if Vancouver is able, what some may call an upset, if they're able to knock off Calgary and get that second win of the season. So, Jake, thank you so much for taking time to join us, as always, to shine a light on what's going on in Vancouver and to give us your thoughts.
Always a pleasure. Anytime, guys. Keep up the great work.
Thank you. You as well. Jake Elliott, our big guest of the segment, presented by Fanatics. You can check out NLL merchandise at the Fanatics link in our social media bio. Jake Elliott, Warriors play-by-play broadcaster, giving us some insight on Joel McCready stepping into the front office and the coaching staff, as well as the future of the Warriors. So we'll see if the Warriors are able to pull off the win against Calgary this weekend. While another team that's looking to get a win and still chasing win number 1, the Georgia Swarm. So our final guest in our last brew, presented by B-Res Coffee Company, will be Brandon Joseph, Georgia Swarm analyst. Stay tuned. Welcome back to Daily Dive. I'm your host, Renee Washington. We've had a chance to talk about the Vancouver Warriors and what they're looking to do with Jake Elliott, play-by-play broadcaster. Well, now it's time to get into our last brew of the show, presented by B-Res Coffee Company. As you're trying to get through that Monday to Friday grind, check out B-Res Coffee Company using the code Daily Dive to get some free samples and taste all the great flavors that they have. Well, we've got a great guest on now because we've talked a lot about the Georgia Swarm and we've been beating them up a little bit. And now to bring in Georgia Swarm analyst Brandon Joseph to break down what you've been seeing from the Swarm. Welcome to the show, Brandon. Nice to have you here. Oops, can you hear me? Oh, we cannot hear you. Maybe have to double check your mic settings there. But Brandon Joseph, while he's getting that set up, does have an opportunity to join us to talk about what's going on with the Georgia Swarm, especially coming off of a close loss to Toronto. The Swarm still chasing that first victory. Not the start you want to have to the season, winless, but they've had some closer games. It's not like they've been getting blown out in every game. You see a close loss like that to Toronto, which can be an encouraging small victory, I guess you could say. So, Brandon, hopefully we can get you squared away. And if we need to, we might have to have you join again and leave and come back to see if it'll work. But technology, guys, technology. Fun fact, while we are waiting for Brandon Joseph's return, is I had a package delivered and my doorbell's ringing, so I had to quickly jump off because I'm like, what's going on here? Raced downstairs, and I live in the city, so it's a lot of stairs, and only to find out it was not even for me. They were delivering it to the wrong person, so gotta love that. There's my fun moment of the afternoon. Happy Wednesday to me.
Happy hump day.
I was like,
I am interested to see what Brandon has to say. Also, what Jake said about the Warriors winning this weekend makes a good point because the Warriors have been playing better.
The Warriors have been playing better.
We'll have to see. Let's take a break though and see if we can get old Brandon back.
All right, if you insist. I was going to talk about the Warriors, but yeah, let's do it. We will see if Brandon Joseph is able to join us and get his audio working, and we'll be right back here on Daily Dive. One moment, guys. Welcome back to Daily Dive. We had some technical difficulties, but I feel like I can hear you already. Brandon Joseph, Georgia Swarm analyst, welcome to the show.
Yeah, sorry about that. I'm in here in Atlanta, and for some reason technology doesn't work, especially the audio, which is just the perfect thing that has to happen.
Yeah, no big deal. Who needs audio, right? Well, now we can see you, we can hear you, and we do want to get into talking about the Swarm. 0-6 to start the season, but interesting enough, when you look at those games, they lost one game by 9 goals to the Bandits, one game by 5 goals in their season opener, but the other games have been 1 and 2 goal losses, including this past weekend to Toronto. So looking at that loss, are the Swarm trending in the right direction?
Yeah, I would say that. I mean, this is, as you mentioned, they were out of it before it even began. That first Buffalo game didn't go their way. They have 3 or 4 wins at this point. It's just been the confluence of in the negative regard for the Swarm, as in they can't get a goal when they need to. They'll get 2 to get back in the game, but they can't take the lead, or they can't lock in the lead, and they need to, and then they give up a goal when they absolutely can't have that. You take a look back, they get level with Colorado, and then immediately, almost 47 seconds after, you just can't do this. This isn't the same Georgia team that won the championship, 6-7, conference final team that we've seen from years ago. The league a level where all those little things do matter in winning and losing games. And I know, but you can't do the little things incorrectly and expect to win games. Seeing the small errors compounding for the Swarm, and it's costing them 6 games.
Yeah, and when you look at it, that's a great point. Offensively, not being able to take that next step and take the lead. So doing all the work to tie up the game or to bring the game close, but then not being able to take over. And then defensively having those breakdowns where, again, bringing the game close, put all that work in, and then within a minute, giving up a goal. And that does deflate you. You know, as an athlete, as a team, you can only so many times continue to pick yourselves back up. After all, it does weigh on you. And now you're 0-3, you're 0-4, you're 0-5, you're 0-6, and now have a potential to be 0-7, depending on how this weekend goes, playing Toronto yet again. So that has, in your opinion, has been the biggest issue for the Swarm. Do you see the morale there, that the team is still kind of bought in? Do you feel like they're disconnected as a team?
Yeah, I think to a lot of the players, pre-game and post-game, they know the things that they need to in-game. It's a different story. I mean, you can't help, any athlete when those things start to affect. But, just take a look at this Toronto game this past week. You have the greatest start to the game, but you put in Craig Wendy, and Craig Wendy stands on his head for the rest. I think encourages the team more than anything. I think they have the best leader possible to get them through. Eddie is always a joy to talk to, and the guys really respect it. The fact that he honest with some of the shortcomings in their game that has led them to this point, but optimistic. So I think that, in watching them in game, it is sometimes, okay, here it goes again, but the fix is there. And I think I saw it in the Colorado game. Mike Manley in the last part of that game against Toronto, the 4 possessions in the middle part of the fourth quarter, played phenomenal. And he really helped to make sure that they didn't necessarily give up, those goals that were going or deflate them. And they really made it a contest later, or they kept it closer than a lot of the great off. Wendy and Manley on that back end played really well in that fourth quarter to make sure.
Yeah. So there are different players that are coming in, giving that surge of needed energy, being that spark plug. And so that is encouraging when you can have players, whether it's coming off the bench or just getting more minutes or just stepping up, that can help the team kind of raise their level. Well, one person that does always raise the level and has been one of the leaders, not only of the Swarm, but of the league for many years now, Lyle Thompson. What do you predict is the future for Lyle Thompson in Georgia? Are they looking to keep him? Are they looking to maybe move him and rebuild? What do you anticipate happening? Because with having a winless start, it leads to questions of, he's still very good and they still need to make some changes. And if they can't put pieces around him, which goes first? Is it Lyle out or is it Lyle in? What are your thoughts from what you
knowing the Arlotta, calling games, I think this is my 4th or 5th year to be around the Arlotta family and great owners across the league. Rebuild doesn't enter into John and Andy's mind. Mine's competitive. I don't think it enters into Eddie Cuomo's mind as well. I think Lyle's going to be moving forward. I think, the acquisitions you can make is Shane Jackson returning to form. He really has returned to form. I think what hurts the Swarm right now is Thompson. And you look at how Lyle and Miles double Lyle, and they bring that extra defender over to guard off Lyle when they're playing. What follows? It follows Miles right on that back end, so Lyle can go around that screen. And there's no free lunches when you want to double Lyle Thompson. Lyle and Miles have a level of some think any two pairings, and it's not fair because they are brothers, that have across the league where Lyle's going to be, and Lyle knows when he needs addition to Miles, that's there. Miles is not here for this season. Huge for, Lyle being the Lyle Thompson that we are trying to figure it out with different players, different pieces. I think that game in Toronto, he had 2 or 3 goals that you just Lyle Thompson. That's what we expect to see out of Lyle Thompson. I think Shane Jackson returning to form. Ryan Lanchbury, I compare him to where Holden Catoni was 4 years ago through the plexi, if he so chooses. But sometimes a little knock on it is sometimes. So as I remember back to the conversations we had about Holden when he was with the coach Cuomo, it was telling Holden, dial it back 2 or 3 miles an hour. You'll be able to. I think that's where Ryan Lanchbury is. He's just a kid that's finding his form, playing professional ball. Once he gets confident in finding his shot, he's going to take the step up. I think Ethan Riggs and Will Cecile games in Toronto, they'll level out and they'll be better that way. I think a lot of team better will come internally with guys finding their game, finding their form. You go from having guys like Randy Stotts, Shane Jackson, Zed Williams, guys that are MVP caliber players, if not MVPs themselves, that second guy. Well, everybody now knows how to defend Shane Jackson because he is an MVP. Everybody now knows how to defend Lyle. So Brendan Bomberry, who's banged up a little and be an acquisition in-house that they feel they can get better. I think where they have to take the immediate step to curb this, I think it comes between the pipes. I love what I'm seeing out of Brett Dobson in making his professional debut over. He is a rookie. He is still learning. He's learning a lot of these guys. I think that's where Kirk Wendy has learned a lot of these players before. He knows their go-to moves and the situation. I just think they are the first to raise their hands. They both know that they have to play better. I think that core of fixing the problem with the winless Swarm is coming from, because you take a look at Toronto, 9 goals allowed a game. That's a great benefit if you come into a game going, hey, if we shot Dylan Ward, Zach Higgins, even teams that the Swarm have, Alex Bouquet, great goaltending is the core of a team. And I think the Swarm a little bit of a soft spot for them. So everybody else is trying to make up for it. And it's a sense of paralysis by analysis.
Wow, you just gave us a lot of food for thought, because as you put it, there's a lot of factors here. You originally were talking about in the beginning, not being able to get over that hump, get the next goal, or hold opponent scoreless when they need to. But there's some bigger factors. When you look at not having Miles on the field, and Lyle and Miles are the 1 and 1B combo. Without that duo, there are other players that now have to step up. And over the years, as you mentioned, with players like Zed Williams and Stotts and Shane Jackson before, when teams didn't really have them figured out, they were able to rely on them. But now you have identities that are being questioned. Who's going to be the next guy to step up? Who is the number 2? And then also on the defensive side, in between the pipes, as you mentioned, goaltending is huge in the NLL. So if you don't have that consistency locked down defensively, it does start to weigh on you. So maybe, to my question, it makes sense why rebuild's not in the conversation, because you can explain. I don't like to give excuses, but you can give excuses to why they're struggling right now. Hopefully Miles is able to come back from injury next season better, back towards his level of play. Maybe you do bring in some other pieces, as you mentioned, some acquisitions, but Georgia's going to be okay. And so there's some encouraging things there. But Brandon, thank you so much for taking time to join us. I'm glad we were able to work through the audio to be able to have you on, because you shared some great insight. So although the Swarm are not getting the results they want, attendance seems to be high, and they do at least have another chance to face Toronto this upcoming weekend. So we appreciate you taking time to join us, and we'd love to have you back on, especially after the Swarm get win number 1, because it's going to happen this soon. I don't know when.
Anytime you need me, I'm there.
Awesome. Brandon Joseph, guys, Georgia Swarm analyst, our last guest of the episode, presented by B-Red's Coffee Company, just giving us some great nuggets of information around what's really going on in Georgia. So a lot of food for thought from our two guests today, talking about the winless Georgia Swarm and the one-win Vancouver Warriors. And we'll see how these teams are able to continue to compete and hopefully get some more victories. Well, for producer Mike, I'm Renee Washington saying thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of Daily Dive. As always, check us out at Daily Dive Lax across all social media and for new shows each and every day, Monday through Friday, 12 p.m. Eastern Time. Have a great rest of your hump day. We'll see you back for more in our final 2 episodes of the week here on Daily Dive.